What's up, Bill?
Good morning, Bill. How are you?
I'm good. How you feeling today?
Today's going to be busy. We got some mastermind calls and trying to get everything knocked out so that way I can be done early on Friday. I'm making a good clip, but I don't know. It's weird, right? Somewhere around 11 to about 1, the day just kind of disappears. I'm not super productive, and then all of a sudden I look up and I'm like, oh, it's 1. I need to get to work, right? Like it's weird. It's almost like a blackout kind of deal. Like I'm somewhat productive. I'm working on stuff, but when I look back at like what I've done at the end of the day, there's always like, shouldn't it have been more?
Right. Interesting. Yeah.
So,
It's those little time demons that steal stuff from you all day.
mhm.
Yeah.
My kung fu instructor, he would call it time bandits, and that there were these bandits that would steal your time, and they would hurt your training. It was actually something that was actually discussed quite a lot, like way back in the day among like martial arts and like kung fu masters, about how you got to train because they were actually using this stuff on such a regular basis, and the time bandits would steal that stuff away from you. They would steal that time. They would steal your ability to improve, and I love that, like bandits.
Well, my favorite thing about that concept is the time was always there. Something just stole it from you. You either allowed it to be taken or you gave it away to something else.
Yeah, for sure. Because that's the thing, right? Like you prioritize the things that are important to you, right? Mm-hmm. So if something I'm really excited about is going to launch or come out, and I've been waiting for it, like I'm there, right? It's on the calendar. I get reminded 17 times before it happens and everything else like this. So you got to do that. You got to do that same stuff with the stuff that you don't want to do, right? Because that's how it gets done, because it's there in front of you, that constant reminder. Yeah. Good morning, Michelle. How are you? Lily Lasagna? That is awesome. Lila, excuse me.
Yeah.
Lila.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Good morning, ladies. Good morning. I was talking with Lila actually about power hours. And she had not been through that concept before, that you turn everything off, everything. Mm-hmm. Tabs on computer, phones, put in the other room, whatever you got to do. And literally for an hour, all you do is deep work hard.
Yeah.
And so we've been working on that over in my productivity group a little bit, my accountability group.
Nice.
Yeah.
I downloaded this app last week that I need to play with. It's called Freedom, and what it does is it lives on your Mac, also lives on your phone, and you can block everything out, right? So you turn it on for a certain period of time, and it blocks everything, right? So for me, I need to do some adjusting because it blocks every web page, like every one of them. Like open a new tab, and it says you are protected from yourself, or something along those lines, and it's great. But since everything I do is like in Google and online and stuff, I need to be able to whitelist and blacklist with extreme prejudice to make sure that I'm allowing the tools that help me and keeping away the ones that don't.
Right. Oh, we have so many rabbit holes, Michelle.
There's so many rabbit holes. There's a ton. Noah's legit though. He's got a ton of stuff, and since the COVID pandemic, he has been just shoveling value and help and how to start, because his whole thing is start a side hustle, right? And that's how he got to where he is. And so he's a big proponent. Just like start something on the side, and we'll have tools. And man, he's good.
Yeah.
It took me 3 weeks of trying to get this article done and getting distracted or demotivated, and then I did it in 2 power hours. Good for you, Lila. That's awesome.
And you can't read the rest, but basically said, and now it's done.
Okay, nice. Yeah. So how was the drive yesterday?
Good. It was productive. I had a couple podcasts. I actually did a couple Seth Godin ones because I hadn't listened to Kimbo in a while. And I've been trying to catch up with Donald Miller's. So I got some good time in there. And then when I got back, when you're off the road, it can be challenging to hop right back into work, because you got to feel like sometimes you got to settle back into your house and get your place set up and blah, 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 blah. Luckily, I was able to jump right back in. I've got a lot of line share of my stuff done for my clients this week already. So I can focus, because I'm a little bit behind on the content camp stuff. So I really need to finish that up. So it's a little off balance, but there's still time, and I feel pretty good about the pace.
That's the hardest part about working from home, man, that people don't realize until like you're just looking for it. You hit the nail on the head, right? You come back from a trip or something like that, and then it's like, okay, cool. Like, let me just make sure if there's anything I need to do before I can work.
Right.
You wouldn't have that conversation if you weren't going home and having to work from home. You would just go to the office and you would just be in work mode. So that's where your routines become important, right? Your routines fix the mindset when you're not strong enough to just like boom and go, right? So, having that thing, right, of, okay, cool, like how can I make this so easy that I'm just going to go and go straight to work because I need to get to work, kind of stuff. I'm not saying that you have to be working all the time, but when you're going to be working, you need to be working, right, and knocking out the things. And there's always chores, and if you have kids, then that's always a thing and stuff like that. I'm kind of surprised you got anything done, after a drive and then kids and, resettling all that stuff. So good for you.
Yeah. Well, I love what you said yesterday about could you work in 5 hours? I was pondering that. What could you do in 5 hours? Because I've always known the statistics that most people only work 3.5 hours or so out of an 8-hour day at work. That's just the facts, like people only work, really, really work. So we're already doing it. So 5 would be an improvement on the average person, right? So when I looked at it that way, I was like, what if I tried to plan my day to only work 5 hours and tried to fill the rest with things that would help me in the 3 or the 5 hours in my off time, like education, other fun stuff that I enjoy. But then, so I have an 8-hour work block, but 3 of it's mine. It's for self-improvement. It's for working on the business. And 5 hours is 5 hours.
When you read the 12-week year, which I'm still working through, and it's still continuing to be impactful, it talks about some of this stuff, right? And that's the thing. That's the level of intentionality that you just talked about right then and right there, right? Now, what I think is going to happen, right, is that when you or me or anybody else takes such a drastic change, right? Like if I try to go down to like a 5-hour workday right now, the other 7 hours that I would normally be working would feel uncomfortable, right?
Right.
So in the beginning, right, there's this idea from Kung Fu, right? You want somebody to miss small because when they miss small, it takes them longer to realize that they've missed, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I make somebody miss way out here, it becomes really apparent really, really easily or really quickly, right? Oh man, I'm not anywhere where I needed to go. But if this thing like barely misses and it goes like, it just barely misses me, right? It takes them longer to realize that they're not on track, right? And so that's how you start to do this stuff, right? You just find one thing, like, you know what? I could do this faster. How do I do this faster? Well, I'm going to schedule it to make sure that I don't get caught in the BS around it, right? And then you do that for a couple of weeks. And then in my opinion, that's when you start going like, okay, cool. Let's find someone else to do this.
Yeah.
Right? I've done this. There's been results. I know what to expect. I know the KPIs. I know the leading and the lagging indicators. Okay, awesome. Let's give this to someone else for, $7 an hour, right? As long as it's going to be balanced with more time that you're actually going to be taking action to move towards your goals.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. But you got to start small and then like kind of like ramp it up, because if you go too big, you're going to be in a panic all the time. You're not going to be in the right head state to delegate and do things well.
Yeah, and I think another way you can do it is reverse the time frame that you have, right? So instead of saying I have 8 hours to work today, I only have 7.5 hours to work today. And so we will find shortcuts because you have lost that half hour, or depending on what your own mindset is a half hour is not a big deal for me to cut out. It's more about filling the half hour that I now have with something that wasn't there before. Because I could personally switch my current 10-hour workday, right? I could switch it down to 7.5, probably pretty easy, and be okay getting all my work done. Like everything I need to get done, will be done. It would be, now I have this 2.5 hours to fill, and I want to go work some more. So what else could I be doing productive or healthy or self-care, something, right? Family goals.
Yeah.
Let's get towards family goals.
Yeah. That's really interesting, because to me, I wouldn't stick to that. I wouldn't stick to this idea of, you know what, I'm just going to lop half an hour off of this day. Like my mind just doesn't work that way. Like I will get into something and I will still end up working until the deadline, right? And the deadline is either time to go play soccer with Alice out in the front yard, or it's time to eat, right? And we eat fairly late. We eat 6:30, 7, sometimes. And so we're starting this at 7:45 a.m. Central Time. So like, there are days where I'm in here doing, dorking around before we start, right? But even without that, 7:45 to 7 o'clock is, it's almost a 12-hour day. So if I just try to like take like 30 minutes off, because the other thing to consider is like, I'm not working full on sprint all day, right? I've got kids and calls and coffees, and so there are gaps in the day where it's not really productive time. Like I've got coffee today with my boy Chris. We're going to talk about some sales stuff. So like, I'll be out and it's going to be 10 minutes there and 10 minutes back. And so, there's little gaps in the day. And I think that this is really, actually, Michelle Stifler told me this one time. Her kids were in homeschool for a long time. And so I was like, hey, so do you just carve out 7 hours? She goes, no, it's not about the time. It's about the output. They just have to hit certain milestones.
Absolutely.
And it was so crazy because I'm the guy who's running around telling everybody about KPIs and like schedule your time and don't focus on like being busy, be productive and everything else. Right. And then my mindset was just like, boom, you got to be sitting here for 7 hours.
Yeah. Yeah. That's we've heard our whole life. It's hard to get rid of. Yeah. We're the same way.
Yeah.
We do the same thing because we homeschool, and we have a whiteboard and we have a workbook, and the whiteboard are the must get dones and the workbook are the weekly goals, right? So you have to finish this workbook for this lesson for the week. And so if they, we're big on routine. We try to be big on routine because routine helps your minds in general. But throughout the day, if they can do the work in any order they want to do it in, and we have, stop points that if you don't reach something by this time, then you don't get X, you don't get Y. Not X input, you don't get Y output. So, and we tried to do the routine thing. Like the first year we were on homeschool, we tried to say, oh, you have to be sitting down at the table at 7:45 and you have to be doing this. And we're going to do, exactly. We're going to do like PE at 10:15 and we're going to do lunch, just like a school schedule. And we're like, wait a minute, we got out of school for several reasons. And one is so that we can do this at the pace and the thing that we want to do it at, right? So it's crazy when your mind gets caught and doesn't want to get back out of. But now, we're 5 years into it. It's like 6 o'clock and they're doing math. I'm not, whatever. That they took 2 hours off in the afternoon. We went and swam or something, right? It's okay. They're getting their math up today.
And depending upon who you talk to and everything else like this, there's a lot of conversation about how school is just kind of a lot of the idea behind like regular school is about getting people into the idea of like bell schedules and showing up and just putting in the work and stuff like this, right? So it's taking us down that road, right? Of the working in factories and moving, right? There's that whole conversation piece there.
Oh yeah.
But it's crazy to me how quickly I jumped into that thing, and this was also years ago. So I mean, I would hope that I wouldn't be quite as unaware of that gap now, but who knows?
Yep.
Real quick, I'm going to give a shout out.
Yep.
Maureen.
Nice.
Look at that.
Nice.
Free hugs.
Nice.
Thank you, Maureen, for the shirt. Appreciate it. And Jake, I got yours. Are you going to be in close this week?
Today, actually.
Today. Okay, cool.
Right,
We'll chat later about the secret meetup, so you can have your shirt.
Yes. Cool. So let me.
What's your big three today?
What's that?
I said, what's your big three today?
My big three today is 10 asks, finish my emails, and I covered it up. I got a video. I got to record today. And then I have a chunk of time with James over at Quirk. We're doing some stuff in person today, so I get to see him. So that'd be cool.
Nice. You had a question?
Yeah, my question was about, so I'm getting to the point where I have my lists pretty well lined up for my asks, and I can tell probably a week and a half from now, I'm going to be almost all the way into not cold, but pretty cold outreach.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so you gave some good conversational kind of like prompts to start things like that. We talked about that, last week and week before. But I was kind of thinking, that can take a while, especially if you start 2, 3, 4 of those at a time. Try to get the prompts out there so you can get people to respond, and you kind of respond as they come on. How do you pace yourself in a day where you're trying to, knock out all these things, and you have 10 cold asks where you're really trying to start conversations, not actually do asks, That to me, it's I can already tell it's starting to get a little distracting for me because I want to be able to respond to them when they pop up on the social media. So yeah, how do you manage conversations like that are really conversations, not just straight up, hey, come join my thing? Because I can check those off easy.
I think there's this concept that HubSpot talks about that I read about once, and I think about it all the time. It's called TTL, time to live, right? Time to live is kind of the recognized amount of time that it takes to get a response back, right? So things like an email, right? No one's really expecting an email right back then. Now we might put ourselves into like a headspace of like, oh my God, I got to answer this right now, but no one's really expecting no one hits send and then just like tapping on the board, just like waiting for that email. Chat's a little bit faster, right? Slack is a little bit faster. Phone calls are instantaneous, and stuff like this. So, if you're, but the thing is these are like almost self-imposed deadlines, right? Because like I feel that too, right? I do lots of messaging, lots of DMs, and lots of conversations and everything, and in the beginning, it's really, really hard. Oh man, I gotta get this guy. I gotta get this guy. I gotta get this guy. But like, if you just build a plan, right, and you just say, okay, cool, I'm gonna go in at 10, 2, and then 5, and then just check, right, and then you just batch and you just run through it like real quick, because you have to, because you can't be always available, because then you're not doing something else. That's kind of the plan that I've been doing, right? Is I'll do my daily value post. I'll check my notifications, see if anything needs to be followed up on or reached out to or anything else like this. If not, okay, cool. The goal is to put it down and go be productive in another part of my business. But there's this pressure of like, I'm going to miss something or something along those lines. And once you just kind of do it for long enough, it kind of goes away, because like, think about it. Like nobody we look up to is instantly available on any platform, right?
Right.
And the more that I lock down my phone with like Daywise and shift how attached I am to it, like this has been the most incredible thing. I stopped doing any social media on Sundays. Really, this is like a detox, and man, I've been doing this for about three weeks now. Like I'll play with my phone, right? I'll allow myself to be on my phone, but I'm not allowed to DM. I'm not allowed to be on any social media at all, right? So it's just kind of like games and browsing and stuff.
Sure.
And it's gotten to the point where like on Mondays, I'm kind of like, man, do I really want to get back into this? Like, and then I have to force myself, because I know that there's rabbit holes. I know that there's some toxicity in online communities and stuff like that are huge and as big as Facebook is, but you got to do what you have to do. So, but it's weird because like on Monday mornings, I'm feeling myself like, okay, I'll push the daily value post out a little bit as opposed to knocking it out first thing, which is my penchant, because I'm just not excited about getting back into that platform, right? It's work for me.
True. As you see there, Lyle was saying last week, we were talking about something else that came up during the power hour, right? The need to respond to people that were like trying to reach out to her, and she's like, oh, this could be business. This is important, right? This should be a priority. And it's like, well, that's the point of the power hour, is that hour is for work. Even though these are priorities, you still have to get this work done. And that was she was saying. That's why I was telling her she needed to turn off all her notifications. But it's the same thing, and you can't read the whole thing. I don't like that so far, because you don't get the whole quote.
Yeah.
But basically, she said she's not feeling the urgency to respond during a power hour. It was coming from a scarcity mindset for her. And I have that same thing, because I feel like if I'm someone has reached out to me and has made an interesting chat as him, and I respond to them, and they take 24 hours or 48 hours to respond, I'm like, not like it's killed. I can still rekindle it, but it's like, So there's the part of me that knows the right answer, and then there's the part of me that when someone pops back up on a convo, I want to check that off my list. I had the convo, I did it well, but it's going to take away from other things. So I think it's part of it's just a balancing act, and I agree with what you said. Scheduling those times, because I am so in that mindset with email now, it's second nature. I don't answer emails.
Exactly.
I go into them when it's scheduled.
And when you're running your email game tight, and I've been doing better about that. Like checking it in the morning. See, and the way that I check it in the morning is not just like, okay, cool, let's go through my email. I look at it as like, do I need to do any of this today? Right? Because it is super easy for me to get into a mindset of like, man, I got to open all these things, and I need to have my inbox zero. Even though like I'm not really an inbox zero guy. Like it's weird. I've got weird thresholds with like when email accounts start to bother me. And so for me, because I do everything in G Suite, when I've got more than one page of like unread email, it bothers me. So I make myself like do it because I need to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Any podcast you guys would recommend? Michelle, how much time do you have? There's lots of them.
So I responded.
Is there
a subject?
Is there a specific area or subject you're looking for more stuff on, Michelle? Is it entertainment or is it development?
Yeah, so we'll see, because there's so many.
We should get Michelle on here.
Yeah,
because Michelle's got their whole goal is to build a farm, right? And I talked to Michael Ryan yesterday, and I'm like, hey, when are you coming on, BIL? And he was like, I need to. And I was like, yeah, okay, come on, let's go. And he's like, I got to figure out the goals. And I was like, that's the whole point of the show. We'll help you figure out your goals. Just come on, we'll have a conversation. So hopefully we'll have Michael Ryan on here, because dude is solid, knows his stuff, and is in kind of a hard niche, right? I mean, video is difficult in small business. So subscribe to The Morning BIL on YouTube. Lila,
that's all.
You get a sticker. You get a sticker or a shirt when we start making them.
Michelle said development.
Development. Okay. God, there's a ton. Jake really likes Seth Godin. I think it depends upon your mindset. If you're looking for ideas, and when you zoom out, there's another level of this, right? Like when I listen to like Noah Kagan in the business stuff I listen to, my mindset will shift, right? I don't know if I'm super vulnerable to this, but I think I am. So whereas if I listen to something like Tim Ferriss, where he's much more on like the macro level and he's just looking for trends and habits and top performers, that gets me thinking more like a top performer, which sometimes doesn't always translate over the bridge to being a productive business owner, right? Like they're not always the same thing. So I think it kind of depends upon what you're looking for and where you think you're not set up. The cool thing is we've kind of had this return to radio, right? Like way back in the day, before you and I were even twinkles in our dad's eyes. People listened to radio and they had these like formatted shows and everybody did it. And now we're back. Like there's a show that I listened to the other day. It's called Against All the Rules, and it's by the guy who writes Moneyball and everything else. And this season is all about coaching and coaches, and it talks about one of my favorite books called The Inner Game Incentives, which I've talked about on the Sherpa newsletter, because it's the best coaching book I've ever read in my entire life. Like, if you're not mind blown at the end of that thing, and hopefully you've done something that's got a physical aspect to it, because that's a lot about what it talks about. I'll buy your book. Like, I mean, that's how impactful it is. Like, I'm rereading it now because, it's been a couple of years and I remember being blown away, but you lose stuff, Michelle, you can have a sticker. Mm-hmm. Here. I've got sales throwdown stickers. We'll have BIL stickers maybe eventually, but if anybody wants a sales throwdown sticker, hold on. We got to talk about this because this was huge yesterday. So talking to Michael Ryan, and I was like, we were having this conversation about all the stuff I'm doing, everything else. And I was like, if I can just figure out how to make it easier for people to share what I do, then I would be good. And he goes, okay. It's funny because I had this conversation today. I don't know how to describe what you do to people. And I was like, okay, that's fair, right? Because, I do sales stuff, but it's not really like sales coaching and like the regular formatted version of it, but really it's sales consulting, looking for new ways to sell and build systems and make it repeatable, and then use data to make sure that you're tracking the right things. So it does get a little bit muddy, but it kind of not like slapped me in the face, but I had this moment of like, yeah, and this is why it's hard to be a consultant and not like a product guy. I help people talk about what they do.
Yeah. Lila's company name is Say Things Better.
Oh, nice. So I love that.
You and Lila officially have to talk now.
Yeah. As a guy who spends too much time analyzing the words that I use and how they're used and how they're structured. Like, I love that. Can I have one of your shirts, Lila? I'll wear it.
For real. Seriously, it's one of the best company names I've ever heard because it is so on the nose of what she does, and it's so on the nose of like it helps.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, she's already got suggestions for you.
Sounds like I get your sales organized and predictable. Okay, so this is where I run into problems with this, Lila, is that on the list of things that people want, right? Nobody really wants the things that I do. Like no one goes out looking for a CRM consultant or sales process consultant or, sales enablement consultant. There's almost like this like open loop of like lack of education about how most people do sales and how it could be. So my thinking is that because of my industry, I guess is kind of the thing, is not flooded, right? I'm not a marketer, right? Like I don't want to run ads for people. Like that would be way outside of my zone and I wouldn't be able to do it well. It would be kind of a nightmare. So yeah, I don't know. Like people just want the end result, right? Yeah. And so that's what I've been running around telling people is like, hey, I'm going to help you scale your sales, and when you're ready, we can scale it past you. You want to save mountains of time, right? And so you talk about this kind of stuff, and I'm not good at building hooks, and I'm not really good at trying to be like the flashy guy. And I feel like that's a lot of what like hook building is really kind of being. So hold on, I'm looking around my camera so that I can see Lila's comment. What are they looking for? And for if not organizing predictable sales, like what would they Google? Lila, if you could tell me, I'd already be writing content about it. That's the thing, right? I mean, there's such an education loop because it's not a product, right? And everyone is kind of built to look for products these days, right? It's almost like the age of the jack of all trades consultant, which is kind of like what I think of myself as, right? I can help on vision stuff and KPIs and building your business and building a plan and offers and all of these things. And I'm okay building hooks for other people because it's not my stuff. Scale is not a clear word. Absolutely it's not, but it's really popular in the circles that I run in, right? All these coaches and consultants who, are selling packages and high ticket offers and stuff like this,
right.
But the thing is, thinking
you're not selling to them. You're not selling to your competition. You're selling to the people that you want to sell and want to buy your stuff. So like I was talking about this yesterday with somebody is that once again, you probably get sick of hearing me say this. You sell people what they want and give them what they need, right? Mm-hmm. So what they want is more sales. That there's no secret there. That it's 100%. I help you get more sales, and it's not about what Gosh, I blanked on the phrase. There was a cool phrase that I also heard yesterday about how, gosh, it'll come to me. Oh, man, I hate when that happens. Anyway, so the point being is you and I do sales and marketing. So you and I are horrible at talking about ourselves. But by nature, that's as entrepreneurs in those industries, we just tend to be horrible at selling our own stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And so if we can't cut back to just the language of the client, then we're doing the wrong things to start with.
So here's where this gets really interesting, right? As a C, I like to be technically correct, right? Like This is really important to me. I hate being wrong, but the thing is I also don't like things to be like uneven and unbalanced, right? So what happens is I get stuck in this loop of like, let me show you how much time you're going to save. So that way you can have more conversations. So that way you can have more deals, as opposed to just saying, I'm going to help you sell more. Yeah. Right. It bothers me that you don't know the process of like, I'm going to help you save a lot of time.
Okay. So that reminds me of my phrase. People don't want the how, people buy the what.
I know. People buy the what.
That's one thing. So it's just a limiting belief, or it's a preference in your own mind that that's how you want it to be. And so it comes back to the question that you ask yourself, am I actually interested in more sales, or am I interested in being right or balanced, whatever word you want to use in your head?
Yeah. It's not helpful, right? So, I mean, I definitely get in my own way about this stuff because, it's why not just put myself all the way out there? Because, the technically correct is the thing that really I've built myself into this kind of box of like being technically correct allows me to be clever, right? And being clever is awesome for some reason for me. So what happens is I'm like, well, not all the time, right?
Mhm.
And stuff like this. And so what happens is in my marketing, when I'm marketing myself, I'm very, very, very aware of, hey, look, we're going to get here, but we got to do this and 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 this first. And nobody wants those things. Like, I'm aware of that, right? But it does make it hard for me to market my own stuff well. So
from a practical standpoint, could you do this, right? Could you be clever by starting with what people want to hear and working backwards into clever versus leading with clever? Because, like, for example, I get you more sales. Okay, what does that even mean? So you start your curiosity questions. Great way to lead in. Well, where do you find challenges in sales? Tell me a little bit where you find the most challenges. And then you just work your way into a conversation where you are creating some clever things in the conversation they leave with, so they know that you're technically smart around sales and have a solution. Mm-hmm. But you're also not talking to everybody all the time. Like, hey, I do sales, right?
Yeah, it's weird because I can, it's always easier when it's not your stuff, right? And we talk about this all the time, and that's kind of why we're having these conversations every day, to like make sure that we're not telling ourselves stories that don't actually serve us, because I get that, right? And hearing Jake say it, guys, I'm like, oh yeah, I could totally do that. But I guarantee in an hour when I'm writing my daily value post, I'm going to be like, oh, let me show you why this is awesome in this post when no one cares. I want to help. I'll listen and find the things that are unique to you and put that in your messaging. Lila, I don't know if that's like a tagline or if that's like a sincere offer to help.
No, Lila, that's who Lila is. She's
okay.
She loves to help. So, and she also said, coaches who talk about limiting beliefs get 0 new clients from the group of people who don't believe their beliefs are limited.
That's the jam right there, Lila. You hit the nail on the head, because what happens is every salesperson I talk to is like, oh man, I'm good. Totally good. And that's how they look too, because I'm killing it, bro. But like literally everybody tells me, well, I close everybody that I sit down across from, because what happens is sales is looked at as this thing you either have it or you don't. And when you have it or you don't, it becomes this thing that you can't work to improve on, because we've built this skill set into this thing that it's not, right? We're not wizards, right? I'm talking about this all the time. Like, I don't put on like a wizard's robe and a wizard's hat when I hop on a sales call. I just hop on the sales call and try to make sure that they're making the right decision for them. I collect as much information as I can about their wants, their desires, their needs, their milestones, and their deliverables and timeline. And then I help them and say, hey, look, you say you want to launch tomorrow. Why tomorrow? How important is that? Well, it's super important. I mean, is it 100% more expensive important? And having that kind of conversation to make sure that they've got clarity about what they're really looking for, right? Like, I'm the expert. I've had lots of these conversations. They might have had 1 or 2, right? And never with somebody who's exactly like me. So I'm not trying to make you to buy my product or my service. I'm trying to make sure that you have the clarity necessary to make the best decision for you. And that's the thing, because I had this epiphany yesterday. I know all these techniques, right? And I'm a technique guy, right? Kung Fu and then poker and then jiu-jitsu and all these things. Like, I love that little bitty 5% thing that nobody else knows about that's going to make me better, because once again, knowledge, I like to be a know-it-all.
Let me ask you on that. How important is that nobody else knows about?
Oh, I mean, so this is interesting to me because now, so in Kung Fu, it's kind of this, it's not very well known, right? I mean, people know about Kung Fu, but like, it's not the most popular like martial art. Yeah. And then the art that I did inside of Kung Fu was really unknown whenever I started it. And then some movies came out, it became very popular. But there was like this whole like mysticism of like John the Kung Fu guy, right? Now that I'm John the Jiu-Jitsu guy, and John the Jiu-Jitsu guy who hasn't trained in 3 or 4 months, it's weird because like Jiu-Jitsu is everywhere, right? There's so many people on the Jiu-Jitsu path, and part of it is awesome because there's so much content, right? And in Kung Fu, these tribes get a little they can get a little toxic, right? And so it's very sectioned off, right? And this is our version of Kung Fu, and this is their version of Kung Fu, and there's differences. But in Jiu-Jitsu, for the most part, for it being exponentially larger than the Kung Fu community, it's still relatively well built. Not all my stuff better than your stuff, because you're constantly having to prove it, right? To everybody. So like, it's just well known. Whereas like in Wing Chun, in Kung Fu specifically, where there's so much striking and not a lot of competitions and stuff like that, it's really hard to know who's good. So then what happens is it pushes the skill to the back and who can market the best. And there's some weird things there.
Well, I'm curious, if you're a technique guy, which you are, and I think you like to be unique. I think that's part of what you like. You like to have something different that other people don't have. That you find value and maybe even some, not self-esteem, but like it makes you feel good when you have something that no one else has ever seen, or a version of something, right? And so I think you apply that to yourself, as well. Because if I can't find something unique, then I can't turn around and sell something unique. So I got to get something more unique. So that's where I think it would be interesting to ask yourself some questions, journal, whatever, on, is it okay for me to start very ununique and use techniques where I end up looking unique, but I get more people through the filter, or I get more content out, or I get more Because if effectiveness is really the goal, then to me that would make the most sense to dig into that next and go, how can I release myself from this? It's not a limiting belief per se. I don't think I necessarily put it in that category, but it's a limiting factor.
What's weird is there's probably something to the idea that I like to do things that other people don't. So that way I stand out as a unique person with unique, right? And I think on the extreme version of that is like hipster, right? Yeah, I don't think I'm quite hipster. The beard could argue otherwise, but I don't think I'm that far down the path. And so what happens is in my sales conversations, and this was the epiphany that I had yesterday, right? When you have these techniques and you're doing the technique because you're doing a technique, you're wrong, right? Your headspace around it and owning it is wrong, right? Because like what happens is that in Kung Fu, I don't think about the techniques that I'm doing, right? Like if I'm training with someone, the other day, Alice was like, hey, like, will you show me some Kung Fu stuff? I said, sure. So we started doing like some chi sounds, some sticky hands, and I was just showing her some stuff and everything else. And I don't have to think about those things because I've done the reps, right? It's so just,
it's a frame.
Yeah, exactly. I'm so unattached to the outcome of like throwing those hands in that format. I know that I'm going to make contact, and I know that I'm going to be able to overwhelm somebody because that's how the style is built. But I don't have to think about it. The hands just go, right? Which is the whole goal. I can do that same thing in sales when I'm in the right mindset, but I'm not in that right mindset when my pipeline is shallow, when I'm under any kind of money pressure, or when I'm unclear about like what I'm doing, right? Because the thing is as a C, if I don't have the rules of the box like really clearly outlined, I don't take any action. Because it's just like, okay, I need a little bit more information.
Which I think that's what I'm saying to you. You're just the C and can describe it better than me. Can you build yourself your own frame that has very clear outlines and put in techniques so that you can get to clever things, right? But not limit yourself in the beginning by having to be clever to start, right? And now you've immediately slowed it down. So that's all I was asking. It makes sense to me. Use your own framework, your own technique to beat your own problem.
Well, the thing is that these are two separate problems, right? Because I don't walk into the sales conversation per se with this idea of like I need to be clever and I need to be unique, right? That's more of like a personal thing. Like I like the things that I like, whatever.
Once you get there, you're fine.
But when I'm in the conversation, like my mindset is like, I'm going to make sure you know what you want at the end of this thing, even if that's me. Right. And so then that allows me to point towards the upstream and the downstream options. Right. And the one downstream option that's going to be applicable, like no matter the market, is do it yourself. Right. Like, hey, Jake, you're going to keep hammering at this on your own and trying to figure it out, even if it takes a long time. Mm-hmm. Is that fair? Right. And here's the deal. That's a technique. That thing that I just did was a technique. There's a technique in there of using reverse psychology to make sure that I'm with Jake as opposed to fighting against him, right? And it talks, there's a lot of sales stuff about this, but Sandler talks about it a lot, and that's where I cut my teeth. And so, but the thing is when I'm thinking about that to make Jake flip, it doesn't ever work, right? But if I am doing that and I'm thinking like, okay, I just want to help Jake make the right decision. And the feeling that I'm getting from Jake is that he's going to keep hammering this stuff out on his own. Okay, let's make sure that he feels comfortable admitting that to me so that way we can have that conversation as opposed to the conversation prospect thinks that I want to have.
Right.
Because depending upon how you view conflict, right? You might just go, oh yeah, John, absolutely, I totally want this, I totally want this, I totally want this, and then we get off the call, and they're like, man, I just wanted, more leads.
Right.
And John did all these things, right? But hopefully everybody leaves the conversation with me with like some clarity about what they should be doing based upon what they really want and all those things.
Right.
So I'm not here trying to change heart and minds.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why being solution-oriented is so important, because even if you're really good at convincing people of things, you can make people see things that they didn't see and convince them to buy things that they don't necessarily need if you're really good at it. That's not a great way to have a long-term relationship with a client anyway. So I think if it's a different issue, it just the same thought process comes to mind is how can you use your own strengths and techniques to work your way into a more simplistic approach to your own message. Because if you're fine when you get to the calls, that's fine. Sounds like, and I actually have the same issue in a different way, is when I'm creating a message for my own brand, I didn't want to limit myself to kind of that jack of all trades. I want to help you with a lot of things. And so I kept limiting what I put out, when now I just say, hey, I help content for content, I help build content for cost-driven organizations, right? Content to customers. And even more so, I'm even getting ready to sub-niche a little bit more right now down to collaborative. I help you build collaborative content because that's what works really well where we're at. I help you build collaborative content, brings you customers. And that's,
How do you define collaborative content versus regular content?
Working with other people to build content. Not me going in and posting by myself every day for 90 days. Me finding a partner to do content with somehow. So like a joint venture? You know what we're doing right now? It's collaborative content.
Pull the curtain all the way back. That was like Inception.
That was so meta.
Mr. Charles? It never works.
No, this is just a good example. It so happens. This is a great example. And that's
kind of why we wanted to launch this thing, right? Because I can help on the sales stuff for other people. I know my stuff, and the marketing stuff, but like it's hard to do your own stuff. What's up, Gabriel? It's really hard to do your own stuff, and that's why consultants are there, right? Like this is the thing, and a lot of people forget this, right? Because they've had a bad experience, and all consultants are trash and all this stuff and everything. I get it, right? First of all, how much action did you take? First of all, because like I know a lot of people who do really good work, but have got like some negative, trash out there in the webs because, they bring people on and they don't take action. So if you're a consultant or coach, you got to make sure that the people that you're working with are going to take action, because what happens is that everybody forgets everything. Jeff had this line, and it is so true and impactful, right? And in my world, like sales is all about agreements, right? You make these little bit mini agreements to kind of, hey, can we have a conversation? Yeah. Can we talk about money? Yeah. If we talk about what it looks like, can you let me know if this is a fit for you? Yeah. Right. It's all about these little bitty mini agreements, and then we're kind of moving along the thing. But I lost my thread, man. I'm totally lost my thread there. Holy crap! I got really excited about something else, and I can't even grab hold of that right now. Holy crap! We gotta wrap anyway, because I got
we do up here. So okay, well, good stuff. I got my daily 3. What's your daily 3? What's your big 3 today?
I've got 2 mastermind calls. I've got a coffee, and I need to build 2 projects. So far, I've done some Googling and searching and have not found good kind of like projects to vet my right-hand VA. I sent my course content and everything over to Jake yesterday, everybody. He told me I needed to have a plan. So, I'll be working on the plan today, but it's checked off the bill list. So for the week, I need 1 more Sherpa. I need to figure out 2 right-hand VA projects. I've made lots of asks about the VA thing. What's crazy is how many people get challenged by that, right? Like, I mean, we're in a group, and I posted in there because there's some really smart people in there, and they were talking about, well, why the obsession with VAs? It's like, it's not an obsession. It's just I'm obsessed with saving my time and getting this company and my brands and my presence to the level that I want to get it to.
Yeah.
So real quick point on that note, right? So SendFox, which is Noah's email client, right? It's pretty solid. You can pay $50 for, I think it's like 3,000 users, which is a lot. Like that's significantly cheaper than MailChimp, right? And it's pretty legit. And they built this tool in there that when you share Noah's code, everybody gets their own specific code. When you share that code, you get rewards, right? So that's why I shared it. We're going to see how many we get, and then we'll go from there. But what happens is that you can do this in SendFox now. So last night I built out kind of like a referral tree step-up line, right? So if you share my stuff or my newsletter 4 times, you get a sales throwdown sticker. If you share it 10 times, you get like a group call. We'll talk about sales stuff. If you do it 20 times, it's a 1-hour strategy call. And 25 times, I'm going to give you the disc assessment and the 90-minute overview with me, and we're going to go super deep.
Right.
And I just love that because it's being very clear about, I want you to share me. I want you to share this stuff with me or with other people, and I'm going to give you some rewards for doing it. So I think that's really cool and a really smart way to, build your brand.
And actually my accountability group is a way to vet people coming in based on, can they get things done? Back to your consultant point, right? Is how much work did the client do? And when you're trying to find new clients, you'll see a lot of conversation about, firing clients and picking the right client, doing things like that. I think one of the ways that, it's an employment side too, right? Where you'll see a lot of people say, hey, I want to hire the right type of person that's somewhere near the skill set versus find the exact skill set and then have to worry about them being a good culture fit, blah, blah, blah. So I think there's a lot of things that we can do beforehand now, especially with automation and things going on, where we can vet people into conversations, marketing or sales, knowing that we have a little bit better chance of them being the right type of person to talk to. And then we hopefully won't have to worry about as much of are they going to work?
And the other epiphany I had yesterday is that it's so easy to run around and try to inject your pain points into the market, right? Yeah. And feel like, and maybe this is just me, but I'm going to be so clever, right? I'm just going to slide this in there, and they're not even going to see it, right? Which is me focusing on the technique as opposed to the outcome, right? The outcome is I'm just supposed to be helping. Right. So sometimes you can know about these concepts but not actually own them, right? So in some instances I'm really good at this, in other instances I'm not, right? It's not like a fixed state. You can come back out of it. Yep. But you got to be able to your intention behind the technique is important. Yes,
agreed, for sure. I think that's a great point. If you're doing technique for technique's sake, then you still need some work. You got the wrong mindset.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, I got to roll out of here. So,
all right, buddy.
Let's go kill it.
Yeah. Text me later. We'll figure out so I can get your shirt.
Perfect.
And we'll elbow or fist bump.
Thank. All right.
All right.